The expo at the Newcastle Entertainment Centre was a chance for men of all ages to indulge their fantasies, with everything from racing cars to computer games. Thousands of visitors came to view the extensive range of exhibits. Motorsports were a big hit, the Shell simulator giving people a taste of the action from the slopes of Bathurst's Mount Panorama. Others tested their driving skills on the video game, while the big boys played with their toys on the racing track. And if race cars aren't your thing, there were always the speedboats. Or perhaps you'd prefer to take to the sky. Those into outdoor activities meanwhile had a chance to practice their rock climbing skills, with a caving display also set up. Golfers practiced their swing, while others took some tips from some of the world's best yo-yo champions. The Toys for Men Expo is open through until Sunday afternoon. Emma Ossian, NBN News.
Is with him?
An early critic of the amalgamation of smaller patrols, former policeman and Member of Parliament Richard Face, says the move away from duplication of station duties helped put more police on the street.
People just seem to think that throwing another heap of police in a police station and that all of your police service, its management and the delivery of services is all bound up in how many police you've got. Now it is important, but at the end of the day, it's how you utilise those police.
According to Mr Face, amalgamations at Charlestown and Belmont, Hamilton and Mayfield have worked well. There are proposals to link the West Lakes area, as well as Upper Hunter patrols such as Scone, Singleton, Aberdeen and Merriwa. Meanwhile, helping to police the police after a shake-up of the top ranks, an Ombudsman's committee will be chaired by State Member for Newcastle, Bryce Gaudry.
The heavy rail line delivers passengers into the city centre, one stop too far according to its opponents. They see it as a dingo fence, a barrier which divides the city centre from the harbour. Now they've renewed their 2-year fight to get rid of it by increasing pressure on the Minister for Transport, Brian Langton, to take action.
The Minister, we understand, has asked the Minister for Planning, Craig Knowles, to look into the matter and look at the global issues as it affects the social and economy and the environment of Newcastle.
Mr Pedersen wants heavy traffic to pull up at the Civic, where a lighter system would take over. A move he says makes economic sense.
There's 168 train movements a day, carrying somewhere between 10 and 15 people on average per train. So it's currently running at a loss of something like $20 million a year.
But those supporting the railway line say it's a matter of encouraging more people to travel into the city by train.
So we need to change the way we develop the city in order to make it more attractive for people to use the train system.
The Minister for Urban Affairs and Planning is expected to comment on the rail line's future before the end of the year.
Newcastle's Hunter Street Mall is going through a $2 million upgrade. Traders and the City Council want to make it a more people-friendly and safer place. The idea of surveillance cameras isn't new, but encouraged by results in other cities and lower installation and operation costs, Newcastle is again considering the electronic security measure.
The council has installed conduits in preparation for the use of the cameras if they're installed. Now that doesn't mean it's a foregone conclusion, but whilst the paving was going down, it was a very simple matter to install the conduits in case they're needed.
A meeting at City Hall tomorrow night will discuss a number of measures that may improve safety in the CBD. New government legislation on hotel and nightclub trading hours is now in force.
Now brings responsibility not only on the owners of the premises and those employed, but I'll be starting a new campaign, which I'm just about to approve, and saying the onus is on the drinker or the person themselves. You're not acceptable to the community anymore to go out and get yourself drunk and make a pest of yourself to the detriment of others.
In Port Macquarie to monitor progress in the November 30 poll, State Electoral Commissioner Ian Dixon has witnessed a steady stream of pre-poll voters flowing to the Horton Street office.
Expected at a by-election that we'd probably get something like about 1,500 people who would probably pre-poll and postal vote. So at the moment we're probably up to about 1,000, so that'll certainly increase over the next 10 days.
From next Monday, pre-poll votes can also be cast at offices in Laurelton and Wingham. A new computer system will be used to collate voting statistics and help the by-election's 220 polling officials better cope with demands for information. The by-election is expected to be a crucial indicator of the statewide health of the National Party and an important reflection of attitudes towards independents versus parties.
I think if it turns out to be close, there will certainly be some media interest in it, and we'll know that probably on Saturday night.
Mary Grills, NBN News.
And big dividends for Copperdomi paid $27.40 and $4.80. The places $1.30 and $2 even. The trifecta $772.40. Racing also today, a picturesque Broadmeadow in Newcastle outfeatured the 9th over 1,400 metres. $8.80 and $2.70, $2.70 and $1.40. The Quinella $46.40 and the trifecta a little more than $400.
The Gretley Colliery outside Newcastle will reopen tomorrow. With the outcome of various inquiries yet to be made public, the state government has announced an overhaul of mine safety.
We're starting from the premise that every time you get up and go to work, you have the right to expect to be able to come home that afternoon. And that should apply equally to coal miners and other miners as much as it does to anybody else in the community.
We want to change the culture in mines, the culture about safety. Now, if we don't change culture, we won't change anything, and that's why it's important. If we can't mine safely, we shouldn't mine.
Although still in the trial stage, it's possible an extract from common clover could hold a key to improved hormone treatment of menopausal women. Sydney St George Hospital began testing the plant hormone isoflavin on patients in 1993. The outcome of the ongoing trials is still to be determined, but the company promoting the product, Norvet Limited, believes the drug will provide similar relief to the effects of menopause as synthetic estrogen supplements, reducing depression and mood swings suffered by thousands of middle-aged women. As well as modifying menopause behaviour, the estrogen-based substance has been shown to regulate cholesterol in the body.
It mightn't reduce the total amount of cholesterol, but it changes its nature so that it is not the dangerous type which becomes deposited in the vessel walls.
A $5.5 million plant which extracts the hormone from clover opened in Wyong today. The state-of-the-art facility houses enough raw material to produce 600 million tablets each year. The drug is tipped to replace the synthetic hormone replacement therapy treatment, currently used by thousands of menopausal women, offering a natural alternative with no side effects.
And these plant estrogens work in exactly the same manner as the estrogens we make ourselves.
Norvet Limited expects the drug to be available to the public by early next year. Vanessa Spark, NBN News.
We've got a park, we've got the lake, we've got trees, it's beautiful. And we've got all the shops that you've got at Glendale and that you've got at Tuggerah.
The families of the missing children gathered at Foreshore Park to mark the second anniversary of Cardiff teenager Gordana Katevsky's abduction. The 16-year-old was snatched directly outside her aunt's Charlestown home.
She's virtually with me every second of the day and more or less saying all the time, you've got to do this, do not stop. And that's what we're doing. We're not going to stop till we find out answers.
The Newcastle Legal Centre is now offering to help find answers by pressuring police to be more open about their investigations.
Perhaps they don't know the answers, but they could tell the parents they don't know the answers. They're just not speaking to the parents at all.
For the parents of Ravel Balmain, missing for just over 2 years, it's a new ray of hope.
It's the only real support we've had since Ravel went missing.
Phil Hind, NBN News. So popular is the Lake Macquarie cycle and walking path, many walkers simply ignored council barriers to get a closer look at the extensions. The council hadn't budgeted to lay the path until next financial year, but a payroll tax refund on the council's casual workforce has put the path on the fast track.
Due to a recent tax ruling, we now find that we can get that money back, and that's an $80,000 windfall to council, and so council has decided that part of that could be put towards the cycleway.
The work will complete the 500-metre section along the foreshore from Ryan Street to Albert Street. It will leave just one gap remaining in the cycleway program, which can now be brought forward a year.
Ultimately, it will go right through to Spears Point Park, and from there it'll join an existing cycleway that crosses the bridge at Cockle Creek and then go out to Burrigal and onto a Wobber House at Burrigal.
By the time it's finished, the cycleway will stretch 7.5 car-free kilometres around the lake. However, the dream of the cycleway circumnavigating Lake Macquarie is still some years off. Phil Hind, NBN News. John Rebo revealed the Super League vision to a packed Newcastle Business Club luncheon this afternoon. The CEO brought light to several cloudy issues before announcing the Hunter Mariners will have to earn $10 million a season to break square.
That's where the opportunity to globalise the game and take it around the world from TV rights and them supplying a good product here, as in the Mariners, it's very achievable.
On the compromise front, Rebo followed the ARL's John Reardon's view that there's as much chance of a merger as there is a date with Diana.
Well, I think we're all just about all compromised out. I think that from News's point of view, and Ken Cowley's been more than generous with his time there. And now it's about, look, we want to build our business, they want to build their business.
Super League's business will focus on providing a quality product on the field. Like the ARL, they believe the better competition will get the public support.
I don't think it would be fair to expect people from Newcastle to go and support the team that's going to get beaten by 50 and 60 points. I think that's one area that Newcastle, the Mariners, have really got right at the moment.
Premier Bob Carr and Opposition Leader Peter Collins entered the Sacred Heart Cathedral for today's service just hours after the opposition, with the support of the Greens in the upper house, voted to effectively cut workers' compensation for miners by 25%. According to Labor, the changes mean a miner suffering a disability will have the maximum payout cut from $220,000 to $165,000.
We had a package that satisfied the needs of the miners, legitimate needs that recognised the danger of the industry. It was struck out of our package in the upper house last night. It was not only the votes of the coalition, but the votes of some Greens who said they didn't like the mining industry anyway.
It has the union movement threatening statewide industrial action in protest. Union officials will meet with the Premier tomorrow to discuss the changes ahead of any possible strike action.
Obviously, we'll have to consider whether or not we'll let our members go into mines where they won't be adequately compensated for any injuries that they may have as a result of their work.
The Premier is promising miners he will find a way around the amendments to restore full compensation payouts.
We will go back to Parliament next year with these measures again. In the meantime, we're going to explore how we can get around this blocking of our measures in the upper house.
As the major shareholder in the National Rail Corporation, Prime Minister John Howard took personal delivery on behalf of the Commonwealth of 2 new state-of-the-art locomotives. They're the first of 120 new engines to be delivered by Ageninen and Company under a $1 billion contract to replace Australia's ageing and unreliable locomotive freight fleet.
It is a remarkable achievement for Australian industry.
It's also an important day for Newcastle and the Hunter area.
The delivery comes in the wake of federal government plans to fast-track the privatisation of the interstate rail freight carrier. It plans to sell its 70% shareholding almost a year ahead of an agreement with the states.
Well, we'll be discussing with both the New South Wales government and the Victorian governments, who are the other shareholders in National Rail, a proposal to try and put our shares, hopefully theirs as well, in National Rail onto the market during the course of calendar year 1997.
National Rail today reported an after-tax profit of $1 million, down from $14 million last year. The carrier says it would welcome a sale.
If rail is to have a strong future and is going to be a strong competitor in transport, it is absolutely essential that we get that grunt from the private sector.
Any sale would not impact on the Gninin contract. In fact, the company is keen to see the privatisation pushed through.
Because this 120 will replace something like 200 locomotives in the fleet. There are still a lot of other locomotives to be replaced, but it's simply a matter of economics and how quickly you can generate those funds to pay for them.
Gninin plan to roll out the new fuel-efficient locomotives at the rate of 2 a week. Phil Hind, NBN News.
What they've done is they've increased the learning opportunities for the students in our school, so that teachers now have the opportunity to employ a variety of learning strategies which cater for children's different needs and abilities.
The assault on miners' compensation reeks of bad timing and worse still hypocrisy on the part of politicians and mine owners. Acknowledging the dangers faced by mine workers, opposition leader Peter Collins attended a memorial service in Newcastle last Wednesday for the 4 miners killed in the Gretley mine disaster. The day before in Parliament, his party voted at the urging of mine owners to reduce compensation payouts to seriously injured miners, bringing them in line with other occupations.
I find it extremely offensive. I think it was an act of hypocrisy from the likes of the opposition leader to attend the memorial, virtually invite himself to the memorial service, say nothing at that service or prior to it, and then allow the position that his party's taken along with the likes of the Greens in blocking that legislation from the government.
Ian Murray, a mining union official, lost his 19-year-old son Damon in the Gretley tragedy.
Coal miners have been separately insured for half a century with their own insurance company. The reasons why the government introduced this bill was because of the unfunded liability of work cover, which has got nothing to do whatsoever with coal miners.
12,000 miners around the state have joined the stoppage. In the Hunter alone, the strike is costing the industry about $7 million a day. A mass meeting will be held at Cessnock on Monday. In the meantime, miners are preparing to add 4 names of the Gretley miners to those of 1,641 other miners killed over the last century.
Because we are just not going to accept the fact that coal miners who work in this country's most dangerous industry are going to have their benefits reduced by 25% simply because of a funding problem in a scheme that's got nothing whatsoever to do with us.
Overnight leader Craig Carmichael had to blast his way out of trouble early, but he then took full advantage of the near-perfect conditions to tame the Newcastle golf course. In a remarkable round, the New South Welshman shot 6 birdies on his way to a 67, 5 under par for the day and 9 under for the tournament. His closest rivals are 7 shots back, with American assistance champion Jim Schumann also in the hunt after a 71 left him at 1 under at the halfway mark. A pack on even par follows the leaders, but the 2 former champions in the field will find it hard to make up the difference after ordinary rounds. Victorian Ewan Walters shot a 1 over par 73 to go 3 over. Western Australian Byron Clarkson shot a 7 over to go 9 over par for the tournament, making the cut by a single stroke. Much is at stake for these trainee golfers with 2 days to go. They're playing for $36,000 in prize money, a playing card on the Australian Tour and an invitation to the US PGA Assistance Championship in the United States. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Newcastle walked onto the pitch confident of breaking the drought, but 5 minutes into the game the Breakers' defence was rattled by a succession of raids by the Knights that went just wide of the mark. Frustration told on the Breakers' side, skipper Troy Halpin given the yellow card for a high tackle. The Knights' attack continued, a searching cross went begging. 0-0 at half-time and the Knights came out firing. A free kick just outside the box put Melbourne 1 up in the 49th minute. The Breakers tried everything to even the score but couldn't convert. 68 minutes into the game, the Knights used their heads to go 2 up, sinking the Breakers' hopes. The woes continued for the Breakers. Troy Halpin eventually sent off with just minutes to go. Coach John Cosmina was stunned by the performance, which has virtually ended the Breakers' chances for 1997. Blake Doyle, NBN News.
Behind the crudely painted message lies a heartfelt anger. Frustrated with their situation, more than 100 residents from the small community of blacksmiths spent the afternoon releasing some of the tension. They're against a proposed Langcombe housing development on the former RAAF site by the Pacific Highway, arguing it will ruin the community spirit of blacksmiths.
All we want is for the people who come to this area to be happy, right, and to mix in with us, and we don't feel that can happen.
Locals fear the additional 35 houses will generate a traffic load beyond the capacity of the area, threatening the safety of local school children. Despite the opposition, Langcombe tried to sell the idea to a hostile crowd today by promoting the design of the complex.
By good design of the houses, it actually creates more private space, better use of sunlight and privacy, and also retains the benefits of the adjoining neighbourhood.
The visual display, however, failed to win over locals.
We're digging the trenches. We're in this for a long battle, and we're not backing off. We're not backing off.
The design will be presented to Lake Macquarie City Council in the coming months. Vanessa Spark, NBN News. The small but vocal crowd from the Wilderness Society was dwarfed by the 70,000 tonnes of wood chips at Boral Sawmillers export site. Their cry to stop the export of wood chips is part of a Boycott Boral campaign.
They're taking our forests, selling it to multinational companies at a really small price, and the ecological consequences are huge.
Not content to confine their protest to land, 4 campaigners took to the water, circling the ship laden with wood chips bound for Japan. Despite the protests, however, bulldozers continued to carry out their work. The ship left Kooragang Island late this afternoon. Vanessa Spark, NBN News. Newcastle is no stranger to the high price underground mining can demand. For the past 100 years, generations of miners have been paying with their lives. Today, hundreds pack St Paul's Anglican Church in Stockton to pay homage to those men who descended into the darkness, never to see the light of day again. The service marked the centenary of the Stockton colliery disaster, which claimed 11 lives. The memorial, all the more haunting, coming less than a month after 4 men at the Gretley colliery joined the ranks of those killed. Descendants of the victims marched silently to the scene of the tragedy, where plaques were unveiled to remember those lost. Vanessa Spark, NBN News.
The opening of the $100,000 refurbishments behind him, Mr Aquilina was introduced to the school cow, crayfish and the parliamentary cabinet, including his counterpart, Ben Fincher, Year 4 student and Minister for Education. For the past few years, the school has run a life skills economy where the students use token money to buy and sell goods and services and learn how to balance a budget.
You have to at least make as much as what you spend so that you can hand it over to the government that's in the next term.
Well, it's a unique program. I haven't seen anything like it anywhere else around New South Wales, and I'm keen to publicise this program to other schools because I think it is something which can be copied and something from which students all over New South Wales can learn.
The school sells honey, cans for recycling, cattle and fertiliser to the outside community. Students run worm farms, grow crayfish and catch carp, which in turn is sold to orchard growers as fish meal.
All schools get a global budget, but schools are also encouraged to make the best use of their own resources based on the locality where they are. And each school therefore has a unique opportunity to be able to maximise what it can and also perhaps make some money for itself.
Apart from the odd sighting or two, it's been a good 50 years since the people of the Wyong Shire have seen platypuses in their creek system. But in the last few months, there have been numerous sightings, one local farmer spotting 3 pairs in an afternoon. Wyong Council says that while the water is cleaner, it's changing agricultural practices in the area that are making the difference.
Well, I think the quality of water has always been good in the river system because it's part of our water supply, but just with the education and the way the farmers are treating it now.
Keeping stock out of the creek and minimising runoff are just some of the methods locals are adopting to help keep the waterways undisturbed. The council has also planted 10,000 native trees along the river system to stabilise the banks and provide natural habitat. Mr McPherson estimates there could be up to 50 pairs of platypus in the creek and believes they'll continue to breed.
With good practices, nice clean water, it's bringing the food chain back. The native fish are also coming back. So I think that's the thing we do, just keep doing what we're doing.
Sarah Griffiths, NBN News.